And it's with a new, I'm going to write this down, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the reason I want to speak about her is people are asking for her resignation. Now, she is somebody, are you familiar with QAnon? Or have you heard QAnon?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
So they're a group of conspiracy theorists who they believe in Pizzagate. They believe that Hillary Clinton ran pedophile rings, and the government is trying to take everybody's rights, and it's just a load of garbage, really. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was somebody who believed, for example, actually, there's a few things that she believed, but it's how she's acted in the last few years is in question.
QAnon, is that just like I don't know, like what type of group is it? Is it that's not clear on. Is it like a membership thing? Is it like, or is it just a group of people that are called these conspiracy theorists?
Why don't we hit our good old friend Wikipedia, so that maybe, because I think Wikipedia will do a better job of explaining QAnon than I will. So QAnon, here we go. I'm just going to share my screen.
So as you're doing that, so she was or is a part of this QAnon?
Not a part of it, but she supported it, believed it. So QAnon is a proven and discredited far-right conspiracy theory alleging that a secret cabal of Satan-worshipping cannibalistic pedophiles is running a global child sex trafficking ring and plotting against former U.S. President Donald Trump, who has been fighting the cabal. So she has been a QAnon believer. She moved to Georgia this past year to run for the House of Representatives. So you have Congress, you have every state has 2 senators. The House of Representatives are similar to MPs, effectively. And what she is, what's happened is she is now running for office, and there's a few items that she has been, I guess, cancel culture is happening to her now, because now she's been elected, and now they're starting to play recently aired video of some stupid shit she's been saying and doing. Now, I don't really know how to play this. So here we got some Russell VPQ is an intelligence psyop, not just a conspiracy. I don't know too much outside of it, because I don't pay attention to QAnon outside of every time they have some sort of a theory or something and I investigate it. It's just a load of shit. So I haven't really gone too far down the path of QAnon as a research piece.
Could Russell VP, thank you for your comment, Russell, and or Sean, what's intelligence psyop? What's psyop mean?
It's psyop.
He's put, in any case, it's BS. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, the first line I thought was quite funny from Wikipedia, which again has its flaws. It's not perfect, but is a disproven and discredited far-right conspiracy theory, psychological operation. Brilliant, thank you, Russell. So
yeah, we're not very bright, Russell.
Psychological operation, not just a conspiracy. Okay. So right, that makes sense. Thank you, Russell, for clearing that up. So this lady, this Marjorie Taylor, was part of this. She had previous videos of her maybe saying some things that are out of turn in line with QAnon, and now she's running and is being cancelled as a result. Is that am I up to speed?
So they're playing videos from. So she had a Facebook.
How long ago, mate? How recent?
3 months, 5 months, 8 months.
Oh shit! Right.
So within this year. So the person who is now in elected office, effectively, in recent memory, has said stupid shit, on a recorded forum. So what I'm going to do, just to give you an example of a few pieces, I have a video here.
This is like, it's so stupid.
So let me, no, that's not the one I want. Here we go. So this is the one I'm going to play next.
To give up their guns and go along with anti-gun friends.
So what this is, and I don't know if this is going to get us into trouble. And we have another comment from Russell. Planned or controlled opposition of a sort, U.S. military has an InfoWars PSYOP division. I had no idea about that. Russell, you're adding way more value than we have to this show.
Thank you, Russell.
Yeah. So we need you in every week. So she's talking about do you remember there's a mass shooting in Arizona where somebody in a Vegas casino busted through a window with a automatic weapon, high capacity round, and just mowed people down at a country music festival?
I remember that.
So this is a very classic example of one I think I can share. I just want to stress for the YouTube algorithm, this is all bullshit. It's false. What we're going to be seeing is absolutely just a load of shit.
I've got a question for you. How do you get avid gun owners and people that support the Second Amendment to give up their guns and go along with anti-gun legislation? How do you do that? Maybe you accomplish that by performing a mass shooting into a crowd that is very likely to be conservative, very likely to vote Republican, very likely to be Trump supporters, very likely to be pro-Second Amendment, and very likely to own guns. You make them scared, you make them victims, and you change their mindset, and then possibly you can pass anti-gun legislation. Is that what happened in Las Vegas? Is that why the country music festival was targeted? Because those would be the people, would be the ones that we would relate to? Are they trying to terrorize our mindset and change our minds on the Second Amendment? Is that what's going on here? I have a lot of questions about that. I don't believe Stephen Paddock was a lone wolf. I don't believe that he pulled this off all by himself. And I know most of you don't either. So I am really wondering if there's a bigger motive there. And does it have to do with the Second Amendment? Because what's the best way to control the people? You have to take away their guns.
So that,
yeah, I was going to say, mate, but based on what again? We're kind of going back to that same shit talking, aren't we? So I have a feeling that he wasn't a lone wolf, based on like where you get
theory. It makes sense.
Let us know like where you're getting that from. Again, it's just like out of this thin air. It's just something's popped into my head. I'm going to share it, and that I just think it's so dangerous what they're doing like that.
And this goes back to the conversations we've been having. And I think part of these conversations we're having are us trying to figure out what is the right answer, because I don't fucking know what the right thing is when it comes to this. I just want to share a few other examples that have come up that I found that were interesting. This one is more just her being stupid. Now, I'm going to keep this one muted. And I'm going to try to paraphrase it because it's just stupid. In this video, do I have it muted? Yeah. In this video, she's talking about the wall. And in it, the border wall that Donald Trump wanted to build. And she's saying, so her point that she's making is we need to take money from drug runners, and we need to use that money to fund this, multi-billion-pound logistical nightmare of a wall. Which you can argue whether the wall is smart or not. My personal view is you could spend a quarter of that on a digital wall and drones and shit, and you'd probably be doing a better job. But in this video, she uses the R word. So again, I don't want to get us have this video pulled down, but the R word for special needs, the one it used to be a fun word to use when it wasn't really connected to that. But she was using it in that sense, and she kind of doubles down on it and says, "Look, I don't mean to. I know that's not a right word, but it's just really dumb, and I don't mean to offend people with Down syndrome, but it's just really stupid." So she's calling people with Down. She's pretty much equating this argument to being stupid to, let's say, Down syndrome, and using that word. And it's somebody who, again, I find this an interesting one to use, because we then start talking about what qualifies you to lead a group of people, and this for me is a bit of a disqualifying piece. So we have a few more comments, by the way, Hugo.
Yeah, let's see him.
New Zealand banned guns because of one single event just like this. So her theory has been proven in the real world on more than one occasion. There are many people in Antifa who agree with her statement there and value the Second Amendment.
So hang on a minute. So if you go up one, so they banned handguns because of a single event. Okay, so her theory has been proven in the real. So, but there's a distinction here though, because there could be a mass shooting, just someone's just gone nuts and just lost their shit, like Charles Whitman in Texas with some mental health issues. He was on his own and doing that. So her theory, I'm right in saying that the person in Las Vegas wasn't alone, and it was government backed and potentially orchestrated in order to try and get a ban on guns. There's two very different things there. So that's what I was hearing from her theory, was that it's like a government ban. Now, I don't know anything about the New Zealand situation. And one event, I think in itself, just a mass shooting in itself is enough to ban guns, without any orchestration. I think that's a loss of life at that scale is enough for you to look at it, right? Like with the Twin Towers and the airplane crash, now you're not allowed to go and see the pilot. That's all locked up because of that and that one event. You know, whether you believe in the conspiracy behind it and how that happened, you're not allowed now to go into the pilot seat because of that. There's a different, you know, they've changed the rule because of one event. So I can see that happening. So I'm not too sure on that side of things. What were your thoughts, Sean?
I don't. I think at the very best, it's in my view, if you're saying this, so if she's saying this, saying, look, you know, I'm not saying this happened, but you know, there are people that might think this, and I think we need to investigate this. And here's why.
That's
here's
different.
the evidence I have. That's different. Yeah. She's making a statement that is quite declarative. And just to kind of go to your point, there are many people in Antifa who agree with her statement, and there are value in there and value the Second Amendment. And I think this goes back to that conversation on what the Second Amendment is, which we now know from our show 2 weeks ago. The Second Amendment, the debate on whether the Second Amendment is right to bear arms, or it wasn't necessarily right to bear arms, but to organize it was a well-regulated militia. And that's where I still get stuck on the word well-regulated militia, which isn't necessarily I can have a gun or an AR-15 on my hip walking around Washington, D.C. That doesn't seem very well-regulated to me. I got this gun at a gun show. I'm out and about. But I think it's one thing to have these points, but it's another thing, again, to make those declarative statements. Plain J with GM. If you could give us a little bit more expansion.
Good morning.
Good morning. Maybe. Good morning. Good morning, Plain J.
Yeah, thank you for the comment.
It literally carries on from that same English common law. And that law existed so that peasants could help protect the land in their homes. Yes, but it wasn't necessarily about land and homes. And we learned about this a couple weeks ago. The idea being that there was supposed to be a separation of let's say state and federal government. And the idea being that the federal government couldn't control the people. It wasn't necessarily about protecting houses. At that time, I think 60% or so of houses had guns anyway, because they had to hunt. They did need to protect themselves. In the end, the fight against the British, sorry, mate, was won over the involvement of a federal army. But there needed to be a regulated militia, which some people would argue could be the police. Some people could argue it could be the National Reserve. Good morning, brothers. Good morning, Plain J. This is a lovely start to a comment.
That is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. But in the United States, we amended that so that citizens would have the power over the government, which I keep going back to this Jim Jeffries comment. You know, you're bringing a gun to a drone fight. That's my favorite comment when we start talking about this gun versus freedom piece. And I think that I'm not saying that I necessarily disagree with having a gun. But the United States has amended, I need to read that again. But the United States, we amended that so that citizens would have the power over the government. And by having elected officials and checks and balances, that is the power over the government anyway. It's not as if the government are just random people that are this isn't a monarchy, and this isn't an empire. This is an elected, democracy. So for the reasons that Donald Trump, was afforded a day in court for his impeachment, that's checks and balances. This is why you have all of these layers. We went on a bit of a tangent with this.
No, it's great.
Yes, the firepower issue has been rendered mute in that way because tank versus 45 isn't a fair fight. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I just picture. Sorry,
go ahead. You're absolutely right, Russell. Good luck in trying to overthrow the American government if they were fully corrupt and trying to take out people, and the people wanted to fight back. All the best of luck with that.
I mean, just to give you an idea, like what I picture is, let's say the government does try to overthrow. This is what I see. Come on, buddy. This is what's going to be waiting for that tank. This is what's going to be standing there watching that drone fly in. Now, I'm not belittling the Second Amendment, and I think there's value in how and why they've made why the government in the U.S. has made the decision to allow people to have guns. I think it's more than just a protective piece of legislation. I think it's a symbolic piece that does show that there is a separation where the people control. And I think technology is making that argument a bit harder. But I think, again, even the founding fathers, for me, I can't get my head away from well-regulated militia. And this is sure as shit not a well-regulated militia as far as I'm concerned. Unless, am I seeing it wrong? I've not been in the military, so I don't know.
Well, that's fair. Me neither. So I'm not going to comment too much.
I mean, this would be good camo at some point, I'm sure, maybe. So that's where did we go? So the whole point of this, we've jumped off track a little bit. We were talking about, I can't get.
So it's about this Marjorie. So she is she said some things that are, you know, pushing the edge. And like I say, it is again like Rudy coming out with some bold statements that she isn't presenting us with any facts as to why she's coming to it. And now she's running for office and has been cancelled. Is that right? Is that what we got to?
Well, there's this. We're having this conversation, and Plain Jay, if you were with us a couple weeks ago, we were talking about cancel culture, and or it was about a month ago, and now we're talking about politics and cancel culture coming together because she's now being held accountable as a legislator for things she said. So one of the other things that she's gotten a lot of heat for, and actually I'm going to be a little bit more equitable to her on this one, is she had confronted, I don't know if you're familiar or you know who David Hogg is.
Never heard of him.
So David Hogg was the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting in Florida. So he is one of the young people. He's actually quite, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, he's a very intelligent young guy, and he's become a bit of a political figure fighting against, I guess, some people would say he's an anti-gun representative, and okay. Marjorie what's her name, Majorie Taylor Greene is Second Amendment. I should have a gun on my hip at all times. Okay. Very similar to Representative Boebert we spoke to last week. So I'll play this video as well, just to give you a bit of idea. This is her following these two young people going to the Capitol to make a case. I think they were in a hearing. And a lot of people found this in poor taste because a lot of these young people were suffering PTSD. The girl in this image was saying that she actually had more PTSD from the negative kickback from her fighting against fighting for some of the gun legislation. But this is her, again, this is last year, I believe.
Yeah. David, why are you supporting the red flag?
Can you turn up just a touch?
Yeah.
If Scott Peterson, the resource officer at Parkland, had done his job, then Nicholas Cruz wouldn't have killed anybody in your high school, or at least protected them. Why are you supporting red flag gun laws that attack our Second Amendment rights? And why are you using kids as a barrier? Do you not know how to defend your stance? Look, I'm an American citizen. I'm a gun owner. I have a concealed carry permit. I carry a gun for protection for myself, and you are using your law.
So this goes on for 2 minutes, all the way up to the Capitol building, where she's following these young people who are going to. Their view is that there needs to be less guns, a lot less guns. Okay. I haven't, you know, and I think for her, any sort of regulation on firearms is an issue. And I'm going to defend her a little bit on this. It's in poor taste, and I would never do that. And I think there's a bit of context that, you know, these young people are doing exactly what we would expect them to do, whether you agree with them or disagree with them. They were in a school that was under attack, and they had friends that were shot and killed.
I can't imagine, yeah.
And she's there giving them, you know, a lot of static. And part of me is like, that's in poor taste. But there's the other part of me that says, look, these young people are entering into the lion's den here.
I agree with you. Yeah.
And as much as I think it's poor taste, and as much as I think she is, you know, an awful individual for doing it the way she's doing it, that's politics. That's democracy. Sorry, not politics. Both. And I don't have an issue with that as such, as far as her being impeached for that.
No, I agree with you. That video there, I didn't see. I mean, that we just had a short clip. I didn't see the before. I didn't see the after. How long she goes on. If those guys are saying, "Look, can you just leave us alone?" I couldn't hear anything of what was being said on counter. But the way in which she was talking and the questions that she was asking and the words that she was using, I have zero problems with that. They were very fair questions, and she didn't come across as too aggressive or anything. She wasn't in her face. From that clip that I saw, I certainly don't have an issue with that. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe it's a little insensitive if you've been shot and you're kind of, you know, what those kids have been through, and then to maybe getting someone's face about that's an insensitive. But I don't think she did that in an aggressive way from that clip.
There were bits, and we haven't seen all of it, where it's cringy at points because she's saying, oh, if there was somebody there with a gun, this wouldn't have happened. And again, these are young people, you know, 17, 16, 18 now, I think, year olds, who are in a in a mass shooting situation and are trying to reduce the number of guns that are out there. And again, there's a taste issue for me. That's all it is. But I couldn't. Yeah, go ahead.
I think you're right. However, I think you're also right by stating, look, if they're going to fight this, if they're going to push back, that's about as pleasant as a counter argument as you can get. So you're going to have to be in a position where you need to stand up to people like that and just give your penny's worth at least. Not that they have to, but I certainly wouldn't discredit her on that short clip that I've just seen. Anyway, I think she's fair. She feels very passionately and believes in it, and fair play to her. She's trying to get into a discussion with them, and maybe they don't want that, and that's fine. And she could or should have respected that. Yeah. But up until what we saw, I don't see any issue with that.
I think now this brings into the greater question. Should you? So if we take this in isolation, do you think she is somebody that should be a state representative? Just your opinion. Forget about whether she was elected or not.
Well, from those 3 clips.
Yeah.
So from 3, which is difficult.
Well, let me.
Can I
add some context really quick?
And so I just go on.
Yeah, so let's say that, and just to keep a long story short, a lot of the stuff on her Facebook page she's removed, and she has said a lot of crazy shit. So I think that I could probably show you 6, 7, 8 videos that would make you go, how the hell is she representing anybody? Which, to be fair, I don't think that context will, if let's say there's multiple videos that are along those lines that you would question her. I don't know. I think I'm going down the wrong route with this. What were you going to say?
Let me take this. So what I see for the clips that I've seen is that, again, she said on the first video quite an outlandish thing without any backing of that. Say quite an outlandish thing. She wasn't saying 100%. She said that I don't believe it was a lone wolf, and many others don't either. But she didn't back it up with anything. So I just have real issue with shit talkers like that. So the problem is, if you're going to wipe people out for that alone, then there'll be no politicians doing anything. Because that's seemingly all they do is talk shit and they don't back it up. Generally speaking, from the most of them that I see, that's a good rule of thumb. From what you were saying, so again, this is where it gets very watered down. The second clip we didn't even see because you muted, so that is not giving her full credit. But based on what you were saying, using the R word, and you're saying that these are within months or within a year ago, like quite recent.
Yes.
Then look, like, you're running the fucking country. Like, that's ultimately what you're looking to do. You have a very important job with people's lives at stake and health and welfare. We need the cream of the crop doing that. Now, with the clips that I've seen and the summaries that you've given and the short snippets and edited footage that I've seen is not someone that I would want running my country. But, however, the caveat I'd say is I've not seen everything that she's done. And I believe everyone should be given a way out for redemption and being able to come back. Yeah. You should be able to make a mistake and come back. But if your mistakes are on video caused months ago or a year ago, maybe that's not enough time to kind of, to show your worth. But no, I would be too impressed with her running from what I've seen so far.
This was the one I wanted to show you. This is my favorite. Okay. This I read about. So I'm not going to go into detail. I think this is enough. But Taylor Greene hinted wildfires were started by Jewish-controlled space laser in another post. So this is sort of the context of who she was. Now, I think if we were to just say, okay, she was having a bit of fun and now she wants to make a serious change. She's now in a represented position. If she was impeached, so what impeachment means in the House of Representatives, there's a safety valve that anybody can be brought up for impeachment, and then 2/3 of the vote have to, I guess, confirm that she would be impeached, for her to be impeached. Do you think it's fair to impeach somebody for reckless posts they made within the last year that bring into question their, maybe not sanity, but their ability to do the job or ability to think for all sides?
Well, Donald Trump, where do you, like, if you're going down that, it's a dangerous arm, right? Who are you going to have left at the end of it? I just think, we should just be trying to get the best possible people moving forward from it. And I'm seeing many cases that she probably isn't the right candidate for that. And that I need to see a lot more of the the positive actions and the positive comments coming forward with, you know, with some real character and integrity before I start taking someone like that seriously. I'm not saying I never will, and maybe she is. She maybe she's having fun, or I don't really know. I don't understand. I don't know enough about the lady, obviously, but I've just not seen enough to be convinced that she's someone worthy of running a country to a suitable level.
Yeah, I think you're really fair in that regard. No matter how much crazy shit she has said, I agree that she should be judged on what she's doing now. She did try. I think her first act as a representative was to get President Biden impeached. So she was trying to bring forward articles of impeachment on Joe Biden. Was sort of her first move. I know that Kevin McCarthy, the I guess the leader, the Republican lead, Kevin McCarthy, who's figurehead in the Republican Party right now, had a meeting with her, and I think part of it was to discuss the rhetoric, because I think the Republican Party is trying to distance themselves from all the shit talking, really, at this stage. Because you've seen what's happened with the Capitol building. We covered this. But it's something where that's what that impeachment piece is there for. And if let's say she was to continue to say crazy shit, then of course somebody's going to say she needs to be removed, and we have to have a vote on it. And that's what democracy is. So a few comments here. So you should have been here last week or 2 weeks ago, Russell. I do like the idea of an independent and armed force to check federal power, maybe a new government branch. And I think that's kind of what the National Reserve is. I think because the National Reserve, I don't think is a federal piece. It's state run. So in the it's sort of like in the UK, I think, is there National Guard here? Is that what that is?
I don't know.
Every country has a local non-federal military force. The police could be perceived as that federal power check. But yeah, it's something interesting idea to have I guess a branch of government that is state run, which you could argue that some states do have something like this. And then just a few other comments here. Oh, thank you, Russell. It's very nice of you to say. I think he was talking about you, mate. I didn't like the way she approached the guy, but I love our Second Amendment. And Jay, what do you love about the Second Amendment? I'd be curious, and we may move on to another topic, but Jay, if you want to give us your view on what you think the Second Amendment is, it's something you and I have been talking about. I'm very keen to hear what you think. I know, in my view, and I know I've touched on it, I think if there are people that are going to have guns, there has to be a hell of a lot of checks, a hell of a lot of background checks and safety classes and lessons and things like that to make sure that, you know, mental health checks, that the people who have the guns are, you know, have their shit together. And I think that falls within the Second Amendment. That's part of well-regulated militia, making sure people know how to use the guns they're getting, not looking down the barrel as they're cleaning it.
Yeah, so, I'll just say, Jay, to let you know my stance as a UK guy who's only been brought up here is that if I was in the States, I'd have a gun for sure. I'd want one. I would really want one, to be honest. But I also do believe that if there were zero guns in the States, which isn't going to happen, maybe ever, but at least overnight, if it were to happen, gun crime would be out the window. That wouldn't mean you're safe, but it would. I think the death rates would plummet down. But realistically, where are we going to go from here? And I feel much like what Sean said. I think it's too easy to get your hands on too powerful weapons, but ultimately I don't think the weapons are the real issue. They can be used. You can have very stable, good-hearted, warm people that have guns and are responsible gun owners. And you know, it's they're not the problem. It's the people with mental health issues that are getting them too easily and going crazy with them, which is the issue. So I think that maybe limiting what people have access to and making sure those checks are very thorough would be a good compromise. Maybe not going from you're allowed guns to you're not allowed, but that just seems a sensible step to me anyway.
Okay. And I still find it interesting when you said that last week, that your view, and just to add a bit of context for people who didn't watch last week, your view on guns is very specific to being in America versus being in the UK.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like I don't own one now, and I wouldn't see the need for it. But if I knew Joe Public could have one out there, I would definitely want one, because I don't want to be down. Like, yeah, I could be the martial art expert, black, MMA fighter, and someone's got a gun on my head. That doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I would definitely want one to protect myself.
And for people who don't know here, and just to give a very general rule of thumb for guns here, you're actually allowed to have a gun, but it's like a hunting rifle, that sort of thing, and you have to interview. Yeah, you have to you have to interview with police. You have to, there's certain checks that are in place. You have to take courses. And there's strict rules about how you store your weapons as well. And it's something that you get assessed on, I think, on a yearly basis with like a gun club or something like that. You have to be a member of a gun club. But
I want to share something with you, mate, in a minute. So sorry, I cut you off. You carry on.
No, I think I've given all the value I had in that sentence.
Right. So in the UK, I'll tell you a story that happened to me. I met with Babsy, you know, Babsy, our buddy, used to work with, and we went down Henley-on-Thames. So we went for a long walk, like a 10-mile walk, you know, had several drinks the night before. So I was a little bit hungover, a little bit anxious and whatnot. But, you know, like you do, you feel a little bit tender, but the walk was brilliant in the woods and everything. So we're walking in the woods and this Jeep is coming up from behind us. And there are guys in camo gear. And the one has got like he's got something over his face like that with a cap on. And he's got a gun with a fucking it's like I don't know what it is, right? It's like a rifle with a fucking silencer on it. And they're driving up behind us in like a walkway. And it was just us. And like, moved out of the way. And they didn't go like, oh, hi, morning. It was like an intimidation, like nod or something, just driving past. The one guy jumped out and went into the woods. And I tell you what, mate, I fucking shit myself. Like, the drink that was in me as well. But I thought, it just flashed before me. This guy could do whatever he wanted to us to. There's nothing we could do. We got nothing on us. 2 against 1 won't make a difference. Like, power. I felt so vulnerable. And I just he did go into the woods. And I was just making sure of that. And I just said to God, that made me real nervous. And he's like, oh, I just didn't. Yeah, I just thought he was going hunting with it. But I was like, on the gear and everything. I didn't like that. I didn't like that power dynamic. So I just wanted to share that experience, which is not that big an experience. But so as a result, if I was in the States, I want a fucking gun too, because what if he did want to go crazy on us? There's nothing I could do about it.
I love the irony of him in full camouflage gear on the back of a loud combustion engine.
It was like a golf Jeep. So it was like
a Gator.
It wasn't really loud. You could hear it walking because we're in the woods, but yeah, mate, it was intimidating. I'm not seeing nothing. No, like the traditional English hunting gear.
Yeah,
not like that. It was like, you know, a lot more sophisticated. It bothered me.
And that's where I have an issue with the open carry laws, because you're in a position where you now have the decision-making power over anybody that's around you. And you have to, I could maybe live with it if states were more strict than they are with who has the guns and who's allowed to. And there are states that are fairly strict with it, but not as strict as I'd like. You know, if anybody's got a gun on their holster, I'd like them to be trained to the degree of a police officer or more. I think even police officers in the States could probably be trained better in how they use their firearm.
Yeah, definitely.
But my main issue with firearms is the volume of them in the States. Is my view is that's why we're seeing a lot of police shootings that are looking bad. And I think a lot of what is construed as race motivated shootings, and there is definitely an element of prejudice in those shootings. Sure. Yeah. But if you know there's a volume of guns out there, and anytime things go a bit pear-shaped, somebody could have something in their glove box. Because most of the states that we looked at, it's actually legal to carry a gun concealed in your car. That most states I looked at. So you're gonna be trigger happy.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Just pulling up to any like domestic violence, anything. You don't know what you're being faced with. Jesus Christ! Just thank God that they're doing that. You know, I just think it'd be one of the worst jobs you could have. No one likes you. You're faced with getting killed every single day, and you've got to watch everything that you're doing because people are out to get you. It would be horrible.
But I think when you speak to and me living in the United Kingdom and having traveled a bit, when you look at that sort of idealistic society that gun owners, real hardcore Second Amendment people sort of value, where every school, every teacher has a gun on their hip. To me, it seems like a real like dystopian, you know, Escape from LA type society where everybody is ready to kill somebody if need be. I'm walking around in the UK. I feel safer outside of the US walking in public than I do in the United States. So yes, there's more knife crime here, but you know what? I give myself a good chance versus a gun if somebody's coming at me with a knife. I feel like I don't feel like if somebody's coming at me with a knife, I'm dying right now. If somebody's coming at me with a gun, I'm like, all right, well, it's been a good run. I hope I can get through this, but I'm probably done.
Knives, like I heard Tim Kennedy, like the American legend, the UFC fighter, and he still currently serves as a Is he? I'm going to mess it up now. I don't know if
he was on a really good TV show that I liked.
He's unbelievable.
I like.
He's my hero. I love Tim Kennedy, and he was just saying, if anyone approaches you with a knife, this is what you do, and he just legged it. He's like, if you see anyone with a knife, you run away. Don't ever try and do anything with them. They're going to cut. Like, you've got so much more to lose. Yeah, you can. It's possible for you to do that, but the safest thing is just to run away from them.
Same with a gun, though.
Gun, can you? But like if you know, but we could be in a wide open. You could bring a knife on me, and I'm like, right, you got to catch me, though, won't you? But with a gun, if you're in the open, then it's you know, it doesn't matter how fast you run. Like you could still get gunned down.
I feel like based on my size and the volume of the population, my running may not take me too far with my bad knee. I have a feeling that I'm going to try to close that gap very quickly. Is going to be my plan, and get a hold of that arm. That's my strategy as a fat guy.
Well, mate, I'm listening to Homo Deus, a brilliant book. I listened to Sapiens; it was fantastic, and this is like the future of human beings. And he was saying about gun control very mildly, but mentioned this point that was in Shakespeare, when you got to watch out for someone that yields a gun in the first act, because they'll use it in Act 3, or it was something to that effect. And I think that is the danger, regardless what anyone says here. I don't care what anyone says as far as they're pro Second Amendment, is that with more guns, you're way more likely to use them. So and that there is a danger to that. There are going to be moments when you're not at your best, and that's what I have issue with as well. Is like we are fallible. We are mammals, really, and ultimately there are going to be times when we're not in a good situation. What happens if your wife cheats on you and then is a real C word about it, like in your face, laughing at you, and you've got a gun in your hand, and it's like, I don't love you, or no one loves you. We were laughing about you as you were doing it. Like, you could actually understand, like, the rage inside someone could be like, right, bang, I finish you. And it's probably not the best route. It's just, it's an added layer that maybe doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. And just comments here. Some of our states need better regulations, like Chicago. Shake my head. And actually, I think Illinois is one of the states that actually does have fairly strict regulation on open carry. But I think the problem is when you have Chicago that's next door, or Illinois that's next door to Michigan, which I think is fairly liberal with firearms, access to guns in the United States is still there. And Chicago is an area where there are a lot of guns still. It's a complex issue. I mean, we even mentioned Canada. Was it 92% of the gun crime in Canada is guns that were registered in the United States?
That's right.
So they have strict gun laws, but they're still coming over. On that point, though, when you talk about guns, there's one story I want to cover at some point in the future, and there's I really like interrogation videos on YouTube. I've really gotten into them, where there's a crime, you know the outcome, and you can see how the police methodically break somebody down. You know, the psychology of getting somebody to admit. And there was a story of Michael Dredge. There was a shooting, and there's video on surveillance of this. So Michael Dredge rocks up to a convenience store, and there's this woman in her car. She's got the window down, and she's blasting her music. And it was a black couple. He's a white dude, and he rocks up. And he has had issues with police before, but no real criminal record. And he has a firearm with him. And there's a bit of an altercation, and he's speaking to this guy's wife who's in the store. This big black dude comes out, sees him talking to his wife. He's got himself on the side. Black dude just shoves him over. Like, he's a big guy, so throws him onto his back. Michael Dredge, you see him talking to him, and he's talking, and the guy's standing over him. And then he pulls his gun out, and he points it at him. And then you see the guy, the husband, backing away. And as he's backing away, he turns around, and the guy shoots him. Now, in the interview, what was interesting to me was some of the terminologies he was using. So they were asking about, he pretty much, because this was on video, he didn't realize to what degree, I guess in his head, he had a bit of fog on about the whole thing. And he believed the guy was coming towards him, and to protect himself, he shot, which would have been legal. You know, if you're going to approach somebody with a gun in America, you get shot, that's on you. You know, you're the aggressor, and you have what's called stand your ground laws. And in the video, he was turning away. And in the video, they were saying, so what, you had a gun on you? Yes, I had a gun. And he called it a force multiplier. And the police were like, what's a force multiplier? And it was a term that you hear when you watch YouTube videos from like gun enthusiasts and things like that. And in my mind, I thought, he's had this gun in his pocket. He's had this gun. It's a tool. It's a really cool thing. I've shot guns. They're really cool to use. They're beautiful. They're metal. They're just cool. And for him, it's like, he probably had this fascination and fantasy about using his gun, even subconsciously. And just having that on his person all the time, there's probably a need that you just have to use it at some point. And in his head, he was physically accosted, and he had a bit of a cloud on him, and he felt like, okay, this is my time to use it. I've made that decision.
Potentially. Like, could that have happened? Yeah, absolutely. But might have not been a case. He may have just been shitting himself and just not in a good position mentally to have coped with anything.
Yeah.
And anything in between. I think that's a difficult one to pin down. Yeah, I don't think what you're suggesting is improbable. I think it's possible, but I think it's also a leap. I don't think it's you could state that categorically. That's actually what happened. Although when the guy is suggesting that he leapt towards him and moved away, actually that's the problem. Like, we interpret things wrong as well. When we are quite fallible at recalling what we've just seen, and there's been multiple studies kind of prove how poor we are at that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch at all, though. I think, what I think is a stretch is to what degree, whether he was fascinated and just was like looking for a moment to use it. But I also think that could be applied in, he had it, he knew it was there to protect him. And in his mind, when he wasn't processing things well because he was scared, it was there. He's trained to use it. He's taken on all this information about how guns can, the fact that he used the term force multiplier means he is really into that whole culture, to me. And he's got this whole gun thing drilled into his head, and he knows he has it to use, and he felt threatened. And that was his first bastion. It wasn't to run off. Guns are there to protect me. Running off doesn't protect me. And I think that whole culture and having one changes your mentality and how you deal with a situation when you're under stress or duress.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit of a problem. But back in the day, like, even what I suppose my parents' day, the generation before ours, you'd get into some trouble, you get into a fight, and then normally, you walk away at the end of it, like someone gets hurt, and of course there are deaths and there are strange things that happen, but largely speaking, you would kind of have it out there and be done with it. And you would then always have the bully, wouldn't you? Someone that was harder than someone else, and they could just kind of say and do what they wanted and get away with it. Whilst the gun is the great equalizer. And there are some positives to that, because you can take out the bully that's taking out everyone. You can step up and have gun power and fight like for like. However, it is also not a great position that you have a bully having a gun and has extra power there. So it's a really complicated situation. I certainly don't have all the answers for it. I think it definitely makes it a messier situation when you're dealing with that. And that, you have this psychology thing of people. I think that's what worries me, is that people have this massive power and yet they don't have this down, and that this is more important than everything, and that you can have any tool that you want, that they're going to be dangerous with it if they don't have this in order.
Yeah. And that's, I think we're in 100% agreement on that. And that's where, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to finish this up, because I just think, genuinely what I think is that children should be forced to fight. And I'm not saying beat the shit out of each other, but it shouldn't be such a, they shouldn't be avoiding it. It's very natural, and we try and suppress this. And the problem is people will grow up into adults not having fully exposed themselves to violence. You need to understand what violence is, and being beaten up and being humbled. The point I'm making from all this is not because I think people should go around kicking each other's asses. No, it's just that once you've been beaten up, once you felt dominated, it's healthy for you to feel dominated. And actually, the more that you're dominated and you're trained through that, through any other system, like like a jiu-jitsu, where you're beaten up on the mats, you're okay, but you're made to feel very vulnerable, is a very grinding experience. I think most people that go through that are the most stable people that I know. So I think that it creates some issues, the fact that we kind of suppress this, and there's people feeling picked on, they can't back themselves, they're not trained in that way. I think it should be mandatory to go through this, so you feel a little bit more like you know what you're doing, or at least have gone through the I think it helps bullies, because when bullies are beaten up, it will suppress a little bit of what they do, and it'll help give confidence to those people that feel very vulnerable. So that was just my little added take on it. We're never going to do it over here, and I think it's a massive shame, because if it was university, everyone would be made to be doing grappling and stand-up fighting, not beating the shit out of each other, but just getting a bit roughed up and understanding how important it is to respect that part of the world.
I don't know how. I don't oppose that idea, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a prerequisite or that has to happen, because there's loads of people who've grown up not being dominated, who understand, you know, who understand some of those values without being put in that position, or don't even want to be in that position. That being said, there are countries that have seen success, and there are people that make a good argument for, mandatory service, reserve service and things like that. I don't know where I sit on it. It's not a black and white thing. I do think I could see value in the government offering a program where people get benefit, whether it's university, which that you kind of do with the National Guard or the reserves or whatever, where you can get that training, not only in combat, but, just in being a better person, and even weapons too. I have no problem, actually. If you want to own a sidearm, you need to go through reserve training or National Guard training. So if you want to be a gun owner, fine, but you also need to be, as the Second Amendment says, part of that trained, highly regulated militia.